let's start. So, my name is Natalia, and with my colleague Ksenia, we would like to present the results of our research on the topic Returnable Packaging Management System in Supply Chains Russian Experience. We made this research in 2019-2020 in a small group of colleagues. Let me start with the motivation of the study. When we start to analyze the returnable packaging market in Russia, we saw that there is an annual increase in turnover of returnable packaging by 15% every year. Then there are several projects that showed the significant savings from managing packaging returns. Moreover, one of the most popular packages is wooden pellets, and they show the annual increase by 8% every year. Then it's important to mention that these pellets, the price for these pellets is growing too. Then, in several months, there will be legislation tightening in Russia concerning deforestation. So the prices would be higher and the market shares would change. Well, um, most people connect the returnable packaging market with the development of the green logistics concept. However, green logistics concept started to develop only in 1980s, and the returnable packaging market started to formate in 1940s in the USA and Australia. But it's necessary to mention that in Russia, this market is only at the early stage of development. There are a great amount of problems, for example, connected with transportation issues. And for example, the worldwide pellet pooling operator CHEP company came to Russia only in 2017.
So the development of returnable packaging market leads to some transportation issues. Firstly, it is often necessary to organize long-distance transportation, and it is complicated by a problem of diversity of routes. Secondly, it is the problem of complexity of tracking and tracing, which is also complicated by a problem of IT support. And also it is important to say about costs and necessity of management circuit increasing. So the returnable packaging forms closed loop supply chain, and companies who works with closed loop supply chain are faced with some challenges. For example, it is a complexity of IT support, high costs, and supply chain visibility. According to Stop Waste Company, there are 3 types of transportation returnable packaging management systems. The first type is a single company system, which is focusing on warehousing and transportation within only one company. The second type is a closed loop supply chain, which implies on forward and return logistics flow between 2 companies, a manufacturer, for example, and a retailer. And the third type is a managed open loop shipping system, and it implies the work with packaging, and it is owned by a shipper in all supply chain. In our research, we are focusing only on 2 last types of systems.
Okay. When we started our investigation, we needed to see what supply chain configurations there are when we are working with returnable packaging. There are a great amount of literature sources that are dealt with this topic, but most of them uses only one, two, or three criteria. It's a make or buy decision, then it's a type of pellet ownership, and the level of centralization. It's necessary to mention that in most models, the level of centralization could be different. And the most common types of supply chain configurations are the following. The first one is switch pull system. The idea of this type is that every participant of the pool have a part of it, and so he is responsible for working with pellets, for example, for repairing them. Moreover, there are systems with return logistics. The main feature of this system is that the agent is responsible for working with pellets. And the third system is systems without return logistics. It's very similar to rent, so the shipper rents some amount of pellets from the agent or provider. He's responsible for them, and when he does not need them, he just give them back to the agent.
So as our research is focused on Russian market, here in the picture you can see the distribution of pellet operators in Russia, and it can be concluded that this distribution is uneven. So in the country is necessary to organize long distance transportation, and in the graph you can see costs for using pellets, and the system with return pellets is cheaper than the system without return pellets, and also a pooling system is the most affordable variant. But in Russian market there is a lack of infrastructure for pooling and rental of pellets, and this fact leads to the lack of economic benefits for returnable packaging in Russia.
Okay, when we dealt with the representation of pellet providers in Russia and literature review, we started to prepare our questionnaire. So in this questionnaire, there were 47 respondents from 47 companies. You can see the period of the first phase of the research on the slide, and also we developed some hypotheses before we started to send our questionnaire. Our first hypotheses were connected with the development of the returnable packaging market in Russia. We saw that it was at an early stage. The second one is about the lack of collaboration in supply chains in this field. Then we proposed that the most important contract in returnable packaging system is the finished goods manufacturer. This company will be the initiator of the reverse flow. And the last one is about solutions that companies implement. We supposed that they implement simple and proven solution and do not try to build a returnable packaging management system.
In this slide, you can see the information about the companies, and the first graph is highlighted that the most popular companies are from fast-moving consumer goods sector, and the second and the third graphs show supply chain contractors type and annual turnover of companies.
When we started to analyze the results of the questionnaire, we would like to see what is the most common type of pellets that our respondents companies use. It is of course wooden and standard pellets. And it's necessary to mention that the highest variety of pellet types is found in manufacturing companies. And of course, the results of our questionnaire confirmed the data from the market analysis that we showed on the second slide. Then we started to analyze what factors companies take into account while choosing pellets. The most important factors are purchase price, reliability, and durability. And as you can see on the left graph, most factors are related with financial aspects, and companies pay less attention to green logistics concept and to the ecological impact. Uh, as you can see on the right graph, two most important options while working with returnable packaging is just buying pellets. They can be new or used pellets. Companies prefer these practices instead of renting, pooling, and repairing. And of course, it's not so good for the environment.
In this slide, you can see return of pallets to suppliers and from customers. And it is important to say that 42% of returns to suppliers are initiated by manufacturer or distributor, and 47% of returns from customers are also initiated by them. So our research found that 28 out of 47 companies don't return pellets to suppliers, and 64% out of these companies consider it economically impractical. And speaking about returns from suppliers, 18 companies don't return pellets, and 75% of them thinks that it's economically impractical. And one more important conclusion is about only 6 out of 21 companies that manage return of pellets do it both to suppliers and from customers. So it can be concluded that it doesn't work well in the supply chain. Here you can see returns of pellets to suppliers and from customers by region, and it's important to say that our research found that the most suppliers' capacities are represented on global market, and most of customers' capacities are represented on local market. So the fact that the global market prevails in the returns to suppliers and the local market prevails from customers can be explained by this fact.
After analyzing the common data, we asked the respondents of the questionnaire to tick some points concerning the practices of returnable packaging system administration. For example, we wanted to know whether they use returnable packaging management strategies, whether they have some key performance indicators or use some practices of inventory management. So the results are the following. First of all, almost 70% of companies have some kind of strategy concerning returnable packaging management. However, only 40% of them manage returnable packaging inventory. Only 32% of our respondents companies assess the efficiency of returnable packaging management, and only half of them uses some kind of set of performance indicators. So I would say that they do not use only financial aspects, but they also assess, for example, reliability, cycle times, or assets. Then some respondents assess the alternatives concerning the packaging options, for example, material and type, and return programs. And the final conclusion that Well, not all of the respondents have enough information concerning these points. For example, some respondents have the information about strategy and key performance indicators, but does not know any information about inventory management. This may lead us to the conclusion that in many companies there is lack of information integration about returnable packaging management. And let me come to the conclusions of our first phase of the research. First of all, the hypothesis regarding market development and specifics were confirmed. Um, Russian market of the returnable packaging is on the early stage of the development due to the high transportation costs, lack of information visibility, and lack of the understanding of whether the returnable packaging can be economically efficient. The second conclusion is that returnable packaging approach will change with new regulations, and so there will be a great amount of new challenges in this field in Russia. And the third one is about the fact that FMCG and retail companies play the main role in returnable packaging market because they have big amounts of goods transportation, warehousing, inventories, etc. Meanwhile, global companies should stimulate the development of this market. As for the future research, we are planning to develop some kind of approach to build returnable packaging system for companies in different sectors. Of course, we are planning to take into account the specifics of Russian companies and then test the work of this system with the simulation. So thank you for your attention. We are welcome to answer your questions.
Спасибо.
Not at all.
Подождите, я фотографирую.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
So you conducted a survey, and I just want to know how many countries have you investigated, and what kind of industries have you it includes in the survey?
Okay, thank you for the question. You can see the distribution by industry on these slides on the left graph. The most important category of our research were FMCG companies, and then we had construction companies, fashion producers, fashion wholesalers, logistics service providers, etc. As for the countries, most of the countries that participated in our research work both on Russian and on global market. For example, they can have global suppliers, have some production facilities in several countries, and then sell their products in Russia. And there were 47 companies in our research.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not at all.
Что помогает вам исследовать этот объект?
Well, thank you for the question. It's very interesting question because actually there is a lack of information on the Russian market and Russian practices concerning the returnable packaging. But we have, rather wide wide number of the alumni that studied in High School of Economics. They have practice in different fields of logistics and supply chain management, and so they were the main participants of our survey. And as for the next parts of the stage, we will work in a group of researchers that have different interests and different skills in order to combine them in our work.